Hello, this is your Daily Scoop for Sunday, April 3rd. This is Annie Sprinkle. Thanks for tuning in. For those folks who have been tuning into the Scoop, this is Annie Sprinkles, by the way, my Daily Scoop name. So folks that had been tuning in since the beginning of the Scoop, which was around, I believe, February 11th, we've been scooping a while now. You all know that the Daily Scoop is about domestic violence, intimate partner violence, any forms of trauma really, and homemade ice cream. And what we're trying to do here with this Daily Scoop information that I'm putting out, trying to do it daily, doing it at least several times a week, is I'm just trying to put out some information and educate folks in our community about resources, if they are or if they know someone who is, ever affected by traumatic experiences such as sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, which could be sexual assault or domestic violence against a child, elder abuse, homicide, or even DWI is considered when there's an injury or a maim or a homicide involved, extremely traumatic experience for people involved in any of these types of social crimes really that happen in our community. And so we're talking about this. So people that have been tuning in know that that's what the Scoop is about. I give you a flavor of the day. I give you a personal story or a story of someone that I know who shared with me personally their story. And then sometimes I share myths and facts. Sometimes I read an excerpt from something that I've seen that applies to what we're talking about during the particular week or month or day as it occurs here with the Daily Scoop. So if you're just tuning in, feel free to go back to my earlier posts and catch up. These scoops range anywhere from 7 minutes to 29 minutes or something. But you get some good stuff, you get some good information, and just take it for what it's worth. And this month in particular, April, we have been talking a lot about sexual assault awareness and prevention and what we can all do. And a few scoops ago, I shared some stories about some high-profile cases. The Jerry Sandusky sexual assault scandal ended up being hundreds of men and boys who came forward with their stories. Just an awful situation there. A lot wreaked havoc in a lot of lives, thousands of lives over many decades. A lot of trauma there. And we also shared a personal story from someone who has allegedly been raped by Bill Cosby as well. However, prosecution can't take place because the statute of limitations has way passed. But nonetheless, she's speaking out, and I shared a petition with people about that to raise awareness about sexual assault and to see what we could do to help prevent so these tragedies don't happen over time, like I said, for decades and decades. And then I also shared a personal story of teen sexual assault that happened to me when I was 16, and then I shared that story, and then also my story of resilience and why that didn't defeat me and why I didn't carry that through all of my life, and it was because of my foundation. So, the next scoop, then we talked about the ACE study, which I've mentioned many times, but I related what those protective factors in your life mean and why it's so important to have resilience in your life so you can overcome adversity when those things happen. And you can implement what you've learned in that healthy environment growing up so you can protect yourself from those things ever happening again. Okay, so I shared my own personal story of resilience and reflection on a previous scoop, so those who tune in have heard it, and now you're catching up. So today, I'm going to share a story, and it's actually a book that's out, by Peggy Orenstein, and it's called Girls and Sex. And Jim and I were watching some morning show, my husband Jim and I were watching some morning show the other day, and we caught a snippet of this. And I'll tell you what, we probably watch a total of, I don't know, maybe 60 minutes a day of television. And that's because we'll watch like 1 or 2 minutes of something and move on. That's just about the attention span we have for the crap that's out there. So this one caught my eye, and then I stayed on it. You know, so I don't recall what show it was on, but this author of this book was on, and I really like to share some excerpts from this story because it relates to Sexual Assault Awareness Month and how we need to be thinking about these things. And it really reminded me, the bottom line is how we learn about this. And you know, I'm just so proud of my parents and, you know, my mom for, you know, raising us the way she did and really explaining a lot about this stuff, because as I'm reading this and as I was listening to this author speak, and she interviewed 70 girls, I was just shocked. I mean, not shocked because I do this work and I hear these stories all the time and I see social media and how, you know, girls are learning now, but we really, really need to step it up. You know, anybody that's listening to this and kind of grew up the way I did, you know, let's try to help the younger generation here and get them to see things a little bit differently and more in a real healthy way. Okay, and I think this story really brings it to light. And again, you can find all this stuff on the internet, but you know, people don't have time to read everything that passes their desk. So I think this is a good way to share it, and it applies to Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So this particular article is entitled 7 Crucial Factors that Affect Young Women's Sex Lives. So I'll just read, you know, the headlines of each of these 7. So number 1, everything from bad sex to low self-esteem can be traced back, in part, to our failure to teach girls how to achieve and value pleasure. So that's number 1. Number 2, whether girls consider virginity as something precious to be protected or a rite of passage to rush through it, it overemphasizes the milestone of vaginal sex over other acts, and it encourages girls to orient their self-worth around whether or not they've had sex. So that resonated with me, with my experience, those who listen to that scoop. And then she's got like a truth, the truth. The internet is full of porn, and a lot of kids are watching it. For many, it's their first exposure to sex. That one really did kind of blow me away. According to Orenstein, social media encourages many girls to commodify themselves as brands and objects to be liked based on their sex appeal. And she isn't so sure that empowered pop divas are helping the matter. Okay, number 5. The internet serves as a double-edged sword for LGBTQ teens. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer teens. A source of cyberbullying to which they disproportionately fall victim. But sadly, it's also a much-needed avenue for self-discovery because they're revealing to someone on the internet, a complete stranger, coming out to a stranger on the internet before they tell a trusted family member or friend. I found that made me sad. Okay, So the bottom line is, and I'm going to read these last two, number 6 and 7. Ordering a pizza is actually a perfect metaphor for sexual consent, because this is all about consent, right? Mutual consent. All right. You may have heard this one before. It comes from a renowned Philadelphia educator named Al Vernaccio. I hope I didn't just do something horrible to your name. Profiled in the New York Times Magazine in 2011. But it bears repeating because it's just too good. Sex as it compares to ordering a pizza, in Orenstein's words. Both start with internal desire, with hunger, with appetite. In both cases, you may decide, for any number of reasons, that it's not the right time to indulge. If you do proceed, there should be some discussion, some negotiation. Maybe you like pepperoni and your dining companion doesn't, so you go halvesies. Or agree that one person will get his pick next time. Or choose a different topping altogether. And a good faith effort to satisfy everyone involved. There is no rounding the bases metaphor, first, second, third base. No striking out. The emphases are on desire, mutual consent, communication, collaboration, process, and shared enjoyment. Number 7. Maybe we should all just move to the Netherlands. No, really. According to a study, Orenstein cites of American and Dutch women at 2 similar colleges. The Americans, much like the ones I met, described interactions that were driven by hormones, in which boys determined relationships, male pleasure was prioritized, and reciprocity was very rare. As for the Dutch girls, their early sexual activity took place in loving, respectful relationships in which they communicated openly with their partners, whom they said they knew very well. About what felt good, what didn't, how far they wanted to go, and about what kind of protection they would need along the way. They reported more comfort with their bodies and their desires than American girls, and were more in touch with their own pleasure. Their secret? As reported in the study, teachers, doctors, and especially parents, spoke candidly with the Dutch girls about sex and pleasure, and both the joys and the responsibilities of intimacy. So I found that to be a really helpful article. And so today's scoop is, actually I'm going to try a new flavor. It's like a chocolate bourbon maple something or other. I don't know why, but something moved me to try that flavor for the daily scoop in my little test kitchen. All right, so I want to share some resources again. People locally in Rochester, there are national numbers, very easy to find on the internet. National sexual assault hotline. There's a local one. There's Rape Crisis, which is now Restore. 5462777. Willow Domestic Violence Center, they've got all kinds of counseling and advocacy services there. 222 SAFE. Bavona Child Advocacy Center, 4615690. And then of course there's the men's program as well, 4672230. And then I'm adding a number here to my list, elder abuse. It's Lifespan's elder abuse program, and their number is 244-8400. Okay, because as we know, sometimes these patterns of abuse just carry through for a lifetime. And with elders, they've been in it so long, it's really difficult for many complex reasons. We could probably do a whole scoop just on elder abuse, and I probably will at some point. you know, be thinking about these numbers that are available in your community to reach out for help. Because again, I just give it to you from my own personal experiences and what I've learned in a classroom and what people have told me about the